peaceful protest erupting in Portland, Oregon. You see right there, just a group of people, again, peacefully demonstrating, as is their First Amendment rights, to Donald Trump's declaration of a war against Portland, Oregon. Earlier in the day, Donald Trump also submitted an official declaration calling on the Oregon National Guard, about 200 or so additional National Guard troops to be activated and federalized, which immediately triggered a lawsuit from the state of Oregon, their Attorney General, Dan Rayfield, who I've interviewed. He filed this lawsuit on behalf of the state of Oregon. I'll show you as well those protesters, peaceful protesters. Some of them went to that ICE facility in Oregon. Let me just show you what that looks like when they went to that ICE facility in Portland, Oregon. Again, the demonstrations were entirely peaceful. I just want to be very clear what's happening there so that there's no disinformation out there. This is what happened when those protesters arrived at the ICE facility in Portland, Oregon. Here, play this clip. So as noted earlier in the day, Donald Trump submitted this memorandum or declaration to activate the Oregon National Guard against the people of Oregon. He cites that June 7th, 2025 memorandum with the 2,000 National Guard that related to California. Remember, Governor Newsom warned that that was this open-ended memorandum that Trump was going to use to then direct National Guard to also go into other cities, as he was in Los Angeles. He's looking to do that in Chicago as well. In response, the state of Oregon filed the lawsuit immediately in federal court. In the United States District Court for the District of Oregon, Portland Division, again, Attorney General Dan Rayfield, who, again, I interviewed him right as he was filing this lawsuit. This is a powerful lawsuit. Let me just, if I can, hit the main points of it. This is how the lawsuit reads. The traditional and strong resistance of Americans to any military intrusion into civilian affairs has deep roots in our history. Our nation's founders recognized that military rule, particularly by a remote authority indifferent to local needs, was incompatible with liberty and democracy. Foundational principles of American law, therefore, limit the president's authority to involve the military in domestic affairs. Those principles stem first from the U.S. Constitution, which reserves the general police power for the states while establishing civilian control over the military. It also affords Congress, not the president, the power to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrection, and repel invasion. While Congress has delegated a portion of that power to the executive, it carefully limited the president's authority to exert control over a state's National Guard, the modern term for the militia, to specific circumstances. And for over a century and a half, Congress has expressly forbidden federal military interference in civilian law enforcement. Defendants have trampled on these principles by federalizing members of the Oregon National Guard for deployment in Portland, Oregon, to participate in civilian law enforcement. On September 28, 2025, the Secretary of Defense, now referred to as the Secretary of War, issued a memorandum calling into federal service 200 members of the Oregon National Guard. This order effectuated a social media post by Donald Trump on September 27, 2025, which authorized the Secretary to employ troops using, quote, full force in Portland, citing nothing more than baseless, wildly hyperbolic pretext. The president says Portland is a war-ravaged city under siege from domestic terrorists. Defendants have thus infringed on Oregon's sovereign power to manage its own law enforcement activity and National Guard resources. Far from promoting public safety, defendants' provocative and arbitrary actions threaten to undermine public safety by inciting a public outcry. The facts cannot justify this overreach. While defendants' actions appear focused on ongoing protests near an immigration and customs enforcement facility in Portland, those protests have been small in recent weeks, typically involving less than 30 people, and the protesters' activities have not necessitated any arrests since mid-June. But defendants' heavy-handed deployment of troops threatened to escalate tensions and stokes new unrest, meaning more of the plaintiffs' law enforcement resources will be spent responding to the predictable consequences of defendants' actions. Defendants' deployment of troops to Oregon is patently unlawful because their stated basis for federalizing members of Oregon's National Guard is patently pretextual and baseless. Defendants cannot satisfy any of the three prerequisites for involuntarily federalizing a state's National Guard under 10 U.S.C. Section 12406. Defendants' purpose in federalizing those troops to integrate them into federal law enforcement activities in Portland also violates the Posse Comitatus Act. Additionally, defendants' actions violate the 10th Amendment's guarantee that the police power, including the authority to promote safety at protests and deter violent crime, resides with the states, not the federal government. And by singling out a particular disfavored jurisdiction for political retribution, these actions also eviscerate the constitutional principles that the state's sovereignty should be treated equally. For these and other reasons discussed below, defendants' actions should be declared unlawful and preliminarily and permanently enjoined. Now I want to bring in Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield. Attorney General Rayfield, you have Donald Trump out there saying that Portland is war-ravaged, that he is saying that the military needs to exercise full force. The military, they've kind of leaked to Washington Post and others, they don't even know what this means. There's not like a formal order that they were sent. There was a social media post, I guess, in between Donald Trump posting photographs of turning the Rose Garden into Club Rose Garden to celebrate with his kind of rich Republican friends, and talking about right-wing QAnon conspiracies about MedBed curing people with AI and all of this stuff that even he took that down. Sandwiched between there, declaring war on a city in your state. Where do things stand right now, Attorney General Rayfield?
Well, thanks for having me. I think you point out something that is just a hallmark of the current president is he just says things. He says absurd things that aren't based in reality. You got to remember, this is a guy who wants to take a national park, Alcatraz, and turn it back into a prison. These are the type of absurd things that come out of his mouth. And it's just as absurd with war-torn Portland, which feels more inflammatory than it does helpful. I think the thing we should all ground ourselves in is that we all want public safety in our communities. And we have that here in Oregon. We have the Portland Police, we have a district attorney, we have the Oregon State Police that are keeping our communities safe. And if you really want public safety, you wouldn't threaten to send in the United States military into any city in the United States. What you'd do is you'd pick up the phone and you would work towards collaboration and finding out what are the appropriate resources that any community needs. And I know for a fact, in talking to cities across Oregon and frankly across this country, that if you picked up the phone and you asked, hey, what do you need? What could be helpful? It wouldn't be the United States military. That's for darn sure. And so you've had the situation where he's threatening to send in the military into Portland in a way that's not helpful. It's not going to achieve outcomes. It will score in political points, of course, but it's not going to be achieved at anything that we as citizens here in Oregon or the United States are really looking to achieve.
It also just seems like no one knows what he's talking about. And it's a pretty serious topic for people not to fully understand. Like, the words have to have meaning, right? Where the military who's being directed to do something says, well, we don't have an order or a directive. What is this based on? What's the authority on? What is full force? What are you talking about? Where the Oregon governor, attorney general, like, you haven't been briefed about what the heck they're doing. And it's just on social media. That's just like, if you pull back a minute, that's like, it's dangerous. It's odd. It's provocative. But like, what is this? Is he living in this just dystopian reality show? Does he think it gets good ratings for the day. What am I doing? I'm at the Ryder Cup. There's going to be a government shutdown. You know what would be good for ratings? Let me say full force in Portland. Like, this is real life.
Yeah, I mean, you cannot underscore how dangerous the way that the president is communicating is to just our democracy and to the world that we live in. No president, no elected official, no government official, whether it's the chief of police or the president of the United States, should make factual determinations on what's going on in a state across the country based upon social media. Again, you should pick up the phone. That's responsible. You pick up the phone, you ask questions, then you send some folks down and figure out what's going on. And you ask, can we help? Do you have this under control? And in fact, we've been in close partnership with our governor, and she's talked to the president and said, hey, we got this. We don't need your help right now. We have ample police forces should something occur, because you got to remember, it's not occurring right now. And this is where we're at in the world right now, where, again, it really feels like this is about scoring political points under the guise of public safety, but not really. And so it's absurd. And so we're just in this space right now where we're waiting, going to see how the president acts. And if he chooses to nationalize, federalize the United States military and put them into the city of Portland, we'll be ready to file a lawsuit.
Talk to us about the conditions on the ground right now, though. In Portland, Donald Trump is characterizing it as a war zone. Earlier on Sunday, I made a video and collected some journalists and other citizen journalists who were recording farmers market, the park. Showed Senator Wyden's post of actually the ICE detention center. Like, nobody was, literally right when Donald Trump was posting, there was actually nobody at that facility. So if there was any location that he's talking about, it's that facility. I showed people playing like the trumpet, and there was music, and people were out and about, like literally enjoying itself. It looked like a very beautiful city. So what's happening there right now?
Well, hey, I would love to welcome the president for a day visit of Portland. I will personally escort him around the city and kind of show him why we love our state, why we love our city. Now, every city has room to improve, unquestionably, but we have the right amount of resources here to take care of that. And I think that's why you're seeing citizens here in Oregon just posting videos nonstop about, hey, come look at our beautiful city. Again, it's not perfect, but we're working towards that. Now, you have an incredibly unpopular political agenda that the president is moving. And so naturally, in a democracy, you have had protests at an ICE facility. Now, when those protesters, the minority of them, have gone beyond their, what I would say, the scope of the laws that we have here in the United States, here in Oregon, our district attorney, our police have held those folks accountable. And they've had actually, I think, more than 24 arrests in the state of Oregon, kind of making sure that people are following the laws, because it doesn't matter, right? Like, you're the president of the United States, you're someone protesting, you still got to follow our laws. And there's accountability here in Oregon when people overstep. But right now, on the ground, as you see in the videos, it's peaceful. You have less than 24 people at these facilities periodically. That's not what I would consider a riot. That is not what I would consider, a condition in which the president can't execute his own laws. So very strange that you would want to then send 200 more U.S. military members for, what is a peaceful 24-person protest. It's a little absurd.
Before we go, anything else you want to just let the people know? I mean, we have a big platform here, about 6 million subscribers. There's a lot of disinformation out there. There are a lot of people nervous, a lot of people in your state who are nervous right now after seeing that post from Donald Trump. So before we go, anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I know this is an incredibly stressful time. It's stressful for me. It's stressful for all the people at the Oregon Department of Justice. I think for people to really realize what's going on behind the scenes, you have governors and Democratic attorneys general across this country that are communicating, working closely together to really make sure that they're serving the people of their state. And it's an incredible honor and privilege to be working with these folks and all of the members at the Oregon Department of Justice who are trying to protect Oregonians on a daily basis. I know it feels incredibly stressful and dark at times, but I do have hope because we have people that are working and we have people on the ground, citizens that are pushing back in a very dark time. And so while you hear a lot of negative news from time to time, I try and keep an optimistic perspective as we're looking towards the future.
Attorney General from Oregon, Dan Rayfield, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to add the MeidasTouch podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts for new updates every single day.